Mob Psycho is one of those shows that reminds me that it's actually possible for a full anime production to feature multiple awesome Sakuga moments in every single episode. No more watching 20 plus episodes of Naruto mouth flapping until we get to the good stuff. That's some good shit right there, if I do say so myself. That's some good... Not only that, but the show achieves a lot of high points, not even counting the animation. The characters are very charming, possessing realistic and developed traits that we can relate to. The villains are a fantastic counter to our main character, as they take their powers far too seriously, while Mob has a much broader way of thinking about what it means to have psychic powers. Reagan is so funny. Also, he's very wholesome, as is most of the cast. The original soundtrack is kick-ass and memorable. The unsung hero of the background art always has some extra details to look at. The sheer hype that gets built up very carefully for the use of numbers slowly but surely counting to 100 until Mob finally blows his lid off. I've never been so hyped to see a percentage in my life. Mob Psycho 100 is just an extremely entertaining and fun show, and Season 2 is shaping up to be just as good, if not even better, than the first. Now, the only real issue I have here, and honestly, this is just unforgivable, it's that there's no anime titties. Seriously, just like, I'm gonna have to take like 3 points off of that one. Like, come on, Studio Bones. How could you mess up something so basic? Jeez. From here on out, as we move into the Sakuga section, I will warn that the clips I am examining do contain some spoilers from Season 1 and 2 of the show, so I would recommend you watch it first, up until Season 2, Episode 4, and then come back to watch the video. Trust me, it's worth a watch. Now, onto the Sakuga. This time I will talk about how Itsuki Tsuchigami, I hope I pronounced that right, and Kazuto Arai convey extreme firepower in their clip, and how Toshiyuki Sato, and also an unknown artist I believe, create an overwhelming sense of power and gravity in his clip. In this first clip, the psychic-powered Teru gets absolutely ganked by the pyrokinetic Miyagawa. Initially, the most obvious thing in this clip is how the fire gets brought to our attention. These are literal waves of fire. They're animated as if a tsunami of fire is bowling through the room. When the fire gets introduced, it's instantaneous how it saturates the room with its bright yellows and reds, leaving little else light to distract from its impending wave. It starts growing behind Teru, giving us the information that it's coming straight for him. The sparks are a nice touch that kinda gives us an idea on how fast this fire is coming towards them, as Teru appears helpless while the fire starts to completely engulf him. The following two shots are fantastic. I love how swift the cuts are, as they really enhance how little time Teru has to react to this barreling fiery force. Somehow I managed to notice that these two shots actually have an interaction with each other to enhance the detail of the animation. The sparks that appear in shot 1 show up quite fast, but then lag behind a little bit, giving us time to really notice them. Then, as it cuts to shot 2, we are instantly greeted with the sparks already in the shot that are placed similarly to where the sparks in the last shot were. And then, of course, they shoot out extremely fast. The interaction that I'm talking about is how these sparks combined in both shots creates an ease in, ease out effect. As is the nature of easing in or out, what this does is enhances the sense of speed and acceleration we see from the fire. It's this interaction that really complements this feeling of, holy shit, the room I'm standing in is all of a sudden being washed away by a fiery tsunami of, fire. I don't know. Miyagawa striding into the frame looks freaking awesome. His silhouette comes into view, and Tsuchigami manages to animate the flames as they move upwards along the crevices of his head. The way he kinda just sways in through the flames also says a lot about his confidence in the situation. He continues his swagger with a nice mid-shot, focusing on his hands and hips, which again accentuates his confidence. Then, with a sweet impact frame exploding from his hands, revealing his true colors from a new source of light, we pan upwards and see his face. And name. A brilliantly animated introduction to a somewhat overconfident character. This next clip, animated by Toshiyuki Sato and an unknown artist or two, displays Mob just outclassing Koyama in power. This is what it looks like when the older brother gets pissed off at his 2-year younger brother for throwing a table tennis paddle at him. What sticks out to me here is Koyama's initial pose. His back is turned to Mob, which leaves him open and defenseless. He tries to turn around, but as soon as his face reaches the edge of the screen, he is immediately buffered backwards. Just look at his face here. The skin on his face is literally stretching in reaction to Mob's power. The stretching is even utilized to create a unique type of smear frame, which looks hilarious in a still frame, but awesome in motion. I just described every single smear frame meme taken out of context. You're welcome, Shaggy. This next bit of camera work is quite interesting. This is something I didn't fully notice until I looked at it frame by frame. Once Koyama is completely out of frame from falling, the camera lags behind a bit, catching up once the audience realizes he's about to eat pavement. This gives us some bonus information on just how quickly and forcefully he is pulled to the ground. Then we get this juicy, oh my, I could seriously just look at these smear frames all day. Koyama gets forced down so hard, his whole body just gets completely disfigured before squashing like a pancake. We then track outwards, getting a nice shot of Mob just towering over Koyama and progressively taking up more screen space while the ground slowly deforms. Koyama then struggles to even move as we see the sweat dripping off his face with some intense camera shake. This next bit is amazing. Koyama proceeds to get dragged extremely hard again, this time with his eyes leading the way. He even leaves a little ghost behind, which is a nice way of conveying how fast he moves. Again, we get the lagging effect, but this time with the following debris and smoke. Ragdolling through some cubey debris, Koyama gets flung all over while inevitably closing the distance. Then we get this amazing looking shot which we can assume is from Koyama's perspective. I love how they drew it with what looks to be either crayons or charcoal, maybe both, I don't know, maybe watercolor maybe, I don't know. It really gives Mob an out of this world look, monstrous in comparison to the usual art style. I freaking love this next shot. Koyama finally gets pulled into Mob's grip, and it's so insanely solid that they did all secondary action on his body and hair, but kept his head completely still, showing us how insanely strong this grip is. Koyama's body almost acts like a floppy ragdoll trying to escape. Then we've got Koyama's extremely stressed out looking face slowly rising off the ground, and we're greeted with a nice teleport type smear frame, followed with a close-up of Koyama's face being manhandled by Mob. These actions, along with Koyama's eyes and face heavily deforming, and yet another smear frame camera lag, prepares us for this very satisfying slam into a concrete wall. Mob even continues to force Koyama through the wall after the initial impact, which is a telling of how furious he is. It's quite interesting seeing this camera lag technique used instead of a more traditional technique. I think most animators' approach to this type of action would be to show the head and wall right next to each other before the wall finally cracks. But with this camera lag, as soon as the wall comes into view, it's already started to break. The impact has already happened. And finally, we get an equally satisfying feint as Koyama takes a final breath, rising upwards and falling down like the ragdoll he is in Mob's grasp. Once again, his head is kept completely still to enhance the ragdoll-like properties of his body. The secondary action here is great too, his arms still bent until the very last frame where they straighten out. And there you have it, an awesome display of sheer power and dominance. This last clip I'm going to just briefly mention, since I will possibly revisit Season 2 in the future. This clip from episode 4 season 2, the latest episode as I'm recording this, features Mob's possessed body fighting against another possessed body. I really love the realism of the movements of the kick at the start here. Mob drags himself and the body upwards and towards him, and with a nice smear, sends the body flying. I like how the animator considers how this action affects Mob as well, as they treat Mob's kick kind of like a jump. You can tell from how Mob's head moves downwards and his hand moves up. This is his body absorbing the force of gravity pulling him down to the ground, like so. Then we get this amazing animation of a possessed Mob jumping around, very similar to how Bruce Lee moves in his movies. I may actually do a video in the future talking about Bruce Lee's importance in the history of Sakuga, as he is quite the inspiration to many of the great animators we know and love today. The next little fight sequence is fantastic. There's a lot of weight being thrown around, and you can clearly see it in the anticipation and secondary action of each movement. I think Mob's footwork at the end is very impressive, even if it's a subtle detail. Then once we're done with the exchange of blows, we get this extremely impressive looking backflip. I cannot stress enough how brilliant the timing and spacing is here. It just looks like a perfect backflip. The smear and landing are also very satisfying to look at. Just awesome. I'm so excited for the rest of Season 2 with the way it's going so far. Hey, thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, be sure to like the Paragon Sakuga Facebook page, subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit the bell for a ping whenever my next video gets released. Remember to comment below if you have some critique or feedback, as this is a very new and scary thing for me. I will try my best to make my next video even better than this one. If you'd like to support me directly in making more of these videos, or help me pick my next topic on what kind of animation to discuss next, then hit the supporter button on my Facebook page. It's like a Patreon subscription, except you gain access to my supporter-only timeline, and a badge which you can choose to remove if you want. The supporter-only timeline is where I post regular updates of my content and page, and you can also have your choice of what kind of Sakuga or animation I post on the main timeline, if you so desire. A second special shout out to Sarah and Stefan for supporting my page. I can't thank you enough for continuing to stick with me throughout this. Thank you. Anyway, thanks so much for watching the video, cheers and have a lovely day. Also smash like.